The logbook of the HMS Daedalus, dated August 1848, describes a creature that did not fit any known species. Captain Peter M. Koo reported that 3 officers and himself watched a figure for nearly 20 minutes off the coast of St. Helena. The creature had a human-like torso, dark skin, and long black hair trailing behind. It raised 2 arms above the water, then dove and disappeared. McQuay wrote that he could not mistake it for a seal or a dolphin. The Admiralty received his report without ridicule, but also without explanation. Christopher Columbus recorded a sighting in January 1493 near the Dominican Republic. He noted 3 mermaids rising from the sea, but added that they were not as beautiful as painted. His journal suggests he already expected them. The medieval bestiaries had prepared European sailors for such encounters. Columbus likely saw manatees, which have rounded faces and flipper-like forelimbs, but the journal does not mention any hesitation. He simply recorded what he believed he saw. Such accounts share a common thread. Sailors in the 18th century knew that hunger and isolation could distort vision. They spent months at sea, staring at endless water, and the mind began to fill in shapes where there were none. The ocean is vast. 95% of it remains unexplored. The gap between what we know and what we do not is still wide enough to hold a legend. The creature described by McQuay had a distinct form. It was not a trick of light. He insisted on that. The officers watched it through a telescope, and the figure moved with intention. It did not behave like a seal. It did not surface like a whale. It lifted its arms, turned its head, and then slipped beneath the waves. The report was filed, and the mystery remained. Columbus wrote with certainty. He had read about mermaids in the works of Pliny and others. He expected to find them in the New World. When he saw 3 figures off the coast, he did not question the sighting. He described them as not as beautiful as they are painted, which suggests he compared them to a known image. The manatee theory fits, but the journal does not correct itself. It accepts what it sees. These reports are not lies. They are interpretations. A sailor trained to see mermaids will see them. A captain trained to record anomalies will write them down. The ambiguity remains. No sailor ever brought back a mermaid corpse. No Triton was ever captured. But the stories persist because the ocean still holds its secrets. The next chapter will examine more testimonies and the psychology behind them. In the early 17th century, Henry Hudson's crew encountered a creature that would be described as a mermaid during an Arctic voyage near Novaya Zemlya. The creature had a white body, a woman's back and breasts, and long dark hair, with 2 of Hudson's men watching it from the ship before it dove, revealing a tail like a porpoise. Although the log does not explicitly refer to it as a mermaid, the choice of words suggests that the crew had no better category to describe what they saw. They reached for the only name they had, one that was already familiar to them. A pattern emerges when examining these accounts. Sightings often occur in open water, during long voyages, and after weeks without land. The crew is tired, the food is stale, and the horizon repeats itself day after day. It is well documented that sailors in the 18th century knew that hunger and isolation could distort vision, yet many insisted they were sober and alert when they made these sightings. The similarity across centuries and oceans is striking, with almost every report describing a creature with a human upper body, dark hair, and a fish-like lower half. While the details vary in terms of skin color, hair length, and behavior, the core image remains remarkably stable. Some accounts come from officers with reputations to protect, such as Captain John Smith of Jamestown, who recorded a mermaid sighting off the coast of Newfoundland in 1614. He described the creature as having large eyes, a finely shaped nose, and green hair, admitting that she was attractive, but also noting that she had too many scales to be truly beautiful. As a practical man, a soldier, and a colonist, Smith had no reason to invent such a story, and his journal treats the encounter as a curiosity rather than a marvel. Triton reports, on the other hand, follow a similar structure but shift the gender, with male figures having human upper bodies and fishtails appearing in accounts from Mediterranean sailors and Pacific islanders. In 1560, Spanish fishermen off the coast of Mozambique claimed to have captured a Triton child, describing it as having human features, webbed hands, and a scaled tail. The local priest wrote a report to Lisbon, which survives in the Portuguese National Archives, describing the creature as neither fully human nor fully fish. The creature died within days, and no drawing exists, leaving behind only a written account. Explanations for these sightings vary, with manatees and dugongs being the most common candidates. These creatures nurse their young at the surface, holding them with flippers, which from a distance can resemble a woman cradling a child. Seals and sea lions also match parts of the description, and some sailors may have seen large jellyfish or floating debris and imagined a figure. The human brain tends to complete a pattern from incomplete information, especially when the observer expects a certain shape, such as a floating log with seaweed becoming a head with hair, or a dolphin surfacing becoming a torso. However, it is not simply a matter of sailors mistaking animals for mythical creatures. They saw what their culture had taught them to see, with every European sailor in the 15th century having heard stories of sirens and mermaids before they left port. When they encountered something unusual, their brains matched it to the existing template. A phenomenon that still occurs today with people who report seeing ghosts or cryptids. The belief comes first, and then the sighting confirms it, highlighting the complex interplay between perception, culture, and experience. The Triton reports from non-European sailors suggest a different cultural filter, with Pacific Islanders describing sea spirits that could grant favors or drown the unwary. These figures were not always beautiful, with some having shark teeth or octopus tentacles, reflecting the fears and beliefs of the people who told them. In contrast, the European version of the mermaid was often romantic and tragic, while the Pacific version was dangerous and powerful, both emerging from the same ocean but shaped by distinct cultural narratives. The ambiguity surrounding these sightings remains, with no sailor ever bringing back a mermaid corpse or a Triton skeleton. The reports exist only as words on paper, written by men who had no cameras and no way to verify what they saw, leaving behind a legacy of stories that have been repeated and retold over time. The Admiralty filed Mackay's report without comment, Columbus moved on to his next island, and Hudson's crew returned to England, telling their story in taverns, where it became part of maritime law, repeated until it sounded like fact. However, every account rests on the testimony of men who were alone on the water, far from home, staring at something they could not name, their experiences filtered through the lens of their culture, expectations, and the vast, mysterious ocean. The question of Tritons, or male mermaids, also arises, with these creatures appearing less frequently in the logs, but still present. The same psychological mechanism applies, but the physical trigger may be different, with some researchers pointing to the oarfish, a deep-sea creature that can grow to 11 meters long, as a possible inspiration. When an oarfish surfaces, dying or disoriented, it can look like a man with a tail, a sight that may have been seen by ancient Greeks, who called it a sea serpent, and later sailors who, with Christian iconography in mind, might have seen a Triton. The ocean is full of animals that, under the right light and the right fatigue, can look like something else, highlighting the complexities of perception and the power of the human imagination. The mistake is not in the seeing, but in the naming, a distinction that underscores the complex interplay between observation, culture, and understanding. The intersection of human perception and the vast unexplored ocean has long been a fertile ground for the creation of myths and legends. Among these, the mermaid and the Triton stand out as particularly enduring figures, captivating the imagination of sailors and land dwellers alike for centuries. However, behind the allure of these mythical creatures lies a complex interplay of psychological, physiological, and environmental factors that have contributed to their sightings and the persistence of their legends. One crucial, yet often overlooked, factor in the emergence of mermaid and Triton sightings is the physical and mental state of sailors on long voyages. Scurvy, caused by vitamin C deficiency, was a rampant affliction on such journeys, leading to a plethora of symptoms, including visual disturbances, blurred vision, and hallucinations. A sailor suffering from scurvy would not see the world around him clearly. His eyes would be dry, his gums bleeding, and his brain confused. When combined with dehydration, the constant rocking motion of the ship, and the profound isolation of being at sea for extended periods, These conditions created a perfect storm for the misinterpretation of natural phenomena. Historians, in examining old logbooks, have begun to look beyond the mere accounts of what sailors claim to have seen, delving deeper into the contexts of their voyages. They analyze what the sailors were eating, how long they had been at sea, and whether sickness was prevalent among the crew. A suggestive pattern has emerged from this research. Sightings of mermaids and tritons cluster on voyages that have exceeded 6 weeks, in crews with high mortality rates, and under conditions where the human body is under significant stress. This correlation underscores the role of human frailty and the harsh maritime environment in shaping the mythology of these creatures. Moreover, the unknown nature of the ocean itself during the 18th century played a significant role in the proliferation of mermaid and triton legends. Marine biology, as a field of study, was in its infancy, leaving sailors without the knowledge or reference points to accurately identify the marine life they encountered. When a sailor saw something unfamiliar, such as a manatee, a seal, or a piece of kelp that resembled human hair, he relied on the stories and legends he had grown up with to make sense of what he was seeing. Thus, instead of identifying the creature correctly, he would often conclude that he had seen a mermaid. This process illustrates the circular logic of folklore, where the belief in a legend precedes and influences the interpretation of evidence. Despite the explanations that can be offered for many mermaid and triton sightings, there remain accounts that defy easy categorization or dismissal. Certain encounters, described in detail by multiple witnesses, do not fit neatly into the categories of known marine animals or the effects of disease and isolation. This has led some researchers to suggest that a small number of these sightings might be based on real, as yet unknown species. The ocean, covering over 70% of the Earth's surface, remains largely unexplored, with new species being discovered every year. The existence of giant squids, once considered mythical, was only confirmed in the late 19th century, and the coelacanth, thought to have been extinct for 65 million years, was rediscovered in 1938. These discoveries keep open the possibility, however slim, that large, human-like marine animals could exist in the deeper, less explored waters, surfacing only rarely and thus rarely seen. This blend of the known and the unknown, the explained and the unexplained, is what keeps the mystery of the mermaids and tritons alive. It is not that science disproves the legends outright, but rather reframes them, leaving room for wonder and speculation. The question of what sailors saw when they reported mermaid sightings remains complex, with possible answers ranging from known marine animals to tricks of the light, symptoms of disease, or perhaps something that science has not yet encountered. Each explanation can account for some of the sightings, but none can account for all, leaving a gap between what we know and what we do, not a gap that the legend of the mermaids and tritons fills perfectly. The evolution of the mermaid and triton legends over time is a fascinating study in how myths can transform and adapt, reflecting the changing fears, desires, and understandings of human society. From being symbols of danger and death, associated with shipwrecks and drownings, these creatures have evolved into figures of longing and loneliness, representing a world that exists just beneath the surface of our own, visible only in fleeting glimpses. This transformation is particularly evident in the arts, where the mermaid has become a powerful symbol of the human condition, caught between two worlds and belonging fully to neither. This image has captivated artists and writers who return to it again and again, exploring its depths and complexities. The mermaid and the triton, therefore, did not disappear with the end of the sailing era, but transitioned into a new realm, moving from the ocean into the realm of art, literature, and cinema. Here, they continue to evolve, reflecting our deepest desires, fears, and the unending fascination with the unknown that lies beneath the waves. Their legends, born from the intersection of human psychology, physiology, and the vast, mysterious ocean, continue to captivate us, reminding us of the magic that lies just beyond the reach of our everyday understanding. Literature followed a similar path. In the 1998 novel The Mermaids, Singing by Lisa Carey, the mermaid becomes a metaphor for grief and isolation. In the 2009 novel The Mermaid of Black Conch by Monique Roffey, she is a symbol of colonialism and environmental destruction. Writers keep returning to her because she works as a container for meaning. She can be about loss. She can be about freedom. She can be about the fear of the unknown or the desire for it. The Triton and mermaid myths are flexible. They adapt to the anxieties of each generation. There is also a scientific legacy. The manatee and the dugong, the animals most likely responsible for early mermaid sightings, are now endangered. Their habitats shrink every year. The same oceans that once hid them from sailors now expose them to ship traffic and fishing nets. The irony is heavy. We created a myth about a creature that did not exist, and now the creature that inspired the myth is vanishing. The distance between legend and reality is closing, but not in the way anyone expected. Museums continue to collect mermaid artifacts. The Fiji mermaid, that grotesque fake stitched together from a monkey and a fish, sits in a glass case at the Harvard Museum of Natural History. It is a fraud. Everyone knows it is a fraud, and yet visitors stop and stare. They want to believe. That is the power of the myth. It does not need to be true to be real. It only needs to be believed. What remains, then, is not a creature of flesh and bone. It is a story that has been told in 100 languages across 1,000 years. A story that changes with every telling but never quite disappears. The mermaid and the Triton are not gone. They are waiting. In the next book, in the next film, in the next sailor's account that someone will post online claiming they saw something strange off the coast. The ocean is still deep. The human mind is still curious. And the distance between what we know and what we imagine is still wide enough for a creature to swim through.